The air was thick with tension as Emily stood her ground, her posture unwavering despite the wall of bikers surrounding her. She could feel the weight of their stares, their mocking grins, and the rumble of their motorcycles idling in the background. But none of it mattered. Years of training and experience had taught her one thing above all else. Confidence isn't shown through loud words or flashy displays. It's proven through actions. And right now, Max and Luna were ready to act. Emily took a deep breath, steadying herself. Her mind flashed back to all the moments that had brought her here. The countless hours spent training under the scorching sun, the sleepless nights during deployments, and the unbreakable bond she had forged with her dogs. These weren't just animals. They were partners who trusted her completely, just as she trusted them. They had faced danger together, saved lives together, and overcome obstacles that would have broken lesser teams. The thought gave her strength, and she straightened her shoulders, meeting Derek's smug gaze head-on. "You want proof," Emily said finally, her voice calm but firm, cutting through the noise like a blade. "Fine. But remember, you asked for this." Without another word, she stepped back slightly, giving Max and Luna enough space to move freely. With a sharp whistle and a subtle hand signal, she signaled them to begin demonstrating their skills. Max immediately sprang into action, his powerful legs propelling him forward with precision. He weaved through imaginary obstacles, executing tight turns and leaps with effortless grace. Luna followed suit, her sleek frame darting across the ground like a shadow. Together, they moved in perfect harmony, showcasing not only their physical prowess, but also their unmatched discipline. Every movement was deliberate, every command obeyed without hesitation. The bikers watched in stunned silence, their earlier bravado melting away as they realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. Gone were the jeers and taunts. Instead, an uneasy quiet settled over the group. Even Derek seemed taken aback, his arms dropping to his sides as he struggled to process what he was seeing. To drive her point home, Emily, in a small, quiet town surrounded by lush green hills and thick forests, there lived a remarkable woman named Sergeant Emily Carter. She wasn't just any ordinary person. She was a highly skilled K-9 handler who worked at the nearby military training base. Her life revolved around her two loyal companions, Max, a muscular German shepherd with piercing eyes, and Luna, a sleek Belgian Malinois known for her lightning-fast speed. Together, they formed an unbeatable team that could handle almost anything thrown their way. Emily's journey to becoming a K-9 handler hadn't been easy. Years ago, she had joined the military with dreams of serving her country. Through sheer determination and hard work, she rose through the ranks and eventually found herself working alongside some of the most elite dogs in the world. Max and Luna weren't just pets or tools. They were family. They had saved lives together during dangerous missions overseas, faced harsh conditions side by side, and built a bond so strong that no words were needed between them. Despite her impressive resume, Emily often faced challenges beyond the battlefield. People underestimated her because she was a woman in a field dominated by men. Some doubted whether someone as petite as her could truly command such powerful animals. But Emily didn't let those opinions bother her. She knew what she was capable of, and more importantly, she trusted her dogs completely. One sunny afternoon, Emily decided to take Max and Luna on a routine training run outside the base. The weather was perfect, warm, but not too hot, with a gentle breeze rustling through the trees. As they jogged along a dirt path near a popular biker hangout spot, Emily noticed a group of bikers gathered nearby. Their loud laughter and roaring engines filled the air, creating a chaotic scene. At first, Emily paid them no mind, focusing instead on guiding her dogs through their exercises. But things quickly took a turn when the bikers spotted her. One of them pointed in her direction, shouting something that made the rest burst into laughter. It didn't take long for Emily to realize they were mocking her. "Look at this little lady trying to play soldier," one of them sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Another chimed in, "What's she gonna do? Send her puppies after us." The bikers' jeers grew louder as they circled closer, clearly enjoying themselves. They teased her about being a woman in uniform, questioned her abilities, and even poked fun at Max and Luna, calling them show dogs unworthy of respect. Despite their taunts, Emily remained calm. Years of discipline taught her to stay composed under pressure. Still, she couldn't ignore the sting of their words, or the way they dismissed her years of sacrifice and dedication. As the bikers continued to mock her, Emily tightened her grip on Max and Luna's leashes. Her heart pounded, but not out of fear. Instead, it was a mix of frustration and determination. These men had no idea what she and her dogs were capable of. And while Emily preferred to avoid conflict, she also knew that sometimes silence wasn't the best option. This might be one of those times. Little did the bikers know they were about to receive a lesson they wouldn't soon forget, one that would challenge everything they thought they knew about strength, respect, and the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. The bikers, emboldened by their numbers and the loud rumble of their motorcycles, began to close in around Emily and her dogs. Their leader, a burly man with tattoos covering his arms and a leather vest adorned with patches, stepped forward. His name was Derek Ironsteel, a nickname he wore with pride. He smirked as he crossed his arms over his chest, clearly enjoying the spectacle his group was making. "Hey, little lady," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "You sure those dogs are as tough as they look, or are they just here for decoration?" His words were met with guffaws from the others, their laughter echoing through the open space. One biker leaned down, pretending to examine Max and Luna more closely. "Yeah, I don't think these pooches could scare a squirrel," he said, chuckling. Another chimed in, "Maybe she's just out here walking them for fun. Bet they've never even seen a fight." Emily's jaw tightened, but she didn't rise to the bait. She had faced worse insults in her career, both on and off the battlefield. Instead, she focused on keeping Max and Luna calm, though she could feel their tension growing. The dogs weren't used to being treated this way. They were trained to respond to threats, and the aggressive energy radiating from the bikers was setting them on edge. Derek, sensing that Emily wasn't reacting the way he expected, decided to push things further. He turned to one of his crewmates, a wiry man with a scruffy beard, and nodded toward the dogs. "Go ahead, Jake. Show her how harmless they really are." Jake hesitated for a moment, glancing at Max's sharp teeth and muscular frame, but the encouragement from his friends gave him false confidence. "Yeah, all right," he muttered, taking a step closer to Emily. Jake reached out his hand, as if daring to pat Max on the head. "See, just a big ol' softy." But before he could finish his sentence, Max let out a low, guttural growl that sent a chill through the air. It wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that silenced the entire group instantly. Jake froze mid-motion, his eyes wide with sudden uncertainty. Even Derek took a half-step back, though he tried to mask it by clearing his throat loudly. Emily seized the moment, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "I warned you," she said firmly, her tone leaving no room for doubt. "Don't touch my dog unless you're ready to face the consequences." Her words hung in the air, punctuated by the restless shifting of Max and Luna beside her. The dogs' ears were perked, their bodies coiled like springs, ready to act at her command. For a brief moment, the bikers seemed unsure of what to do next. They glanced at each other nervously, their earlier bravado faltering under the weight of the situation. But then Derek spoke up again, his voice louder this time, trying to regain control of the moment. "Oh, come on. You're telling me these mutts can actually do something. Prove it." His challenge was met with cheers from his crew, who egged him on, desperate to reclaim their swagger. But Emily didn't flinch. She knew exactly what her dogs were capable of. And so did Max and Luna. With a subtle shift in her stance, she signaled to them, preparing to show the bikers why underestimating her and her team was the biggest mistake they could make. What happened next would leave an indelible mark on everyone present, proving once and for all that strength isn't always about size or noise. It's about skill, discipline, and respect. The stage was set, and the bikers were about to learn a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. The standoff had reached its peak, and the air seemed to crackle with a mix of fear and respect. Emily stood tall, her presence commanding as Max and Luna sat calmly by her side, their eyes still locked onto the group of bikers. The men shifted uncomfortably, their earlier arrogance completely stripped away. Derek, who only moments ago had been the loudest voice in the crowd, now looked like a deflated balloon. His usual bravado was gone, replaced by an uncharacteristic humility. "All right," Derek said, breaking the silence. His voice was quieter now, almost hesitant. "You've made your point. We messed up. No excuses." He glanced at his crew, then back at Emily. "We didn't know how serious this was. Honestly, we weren't thinking." Emily studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. She could see the sincerity in his words, but she also knew that apologies were easy. It was actions that truly mattered. Still, she appreciated the effort. "It's not just about me," she replied evenly. "It's about respecting the work these dogs do, and the people who train them. They're not here for entertainment or jokes. They're here to protect, to serve, and sometimes to save lives." Derek nodded slowly, his gaze dropping to the ground. For once, he wasn't trying to act tough or put on a show. Instead, he seemed genuinely affected by what he'd witnessed, and perhaps even ashamed of himself. After a long pause, he looked up again, meeting Emily's eyes. "What can we do to make it right?" he asked. It was a simple question, but it carried weight. It showed that he wasn't just apologizing out of fear, he actually wanted to make amends. Emily considered his question carefully. She could have walked away, leaving the bikers to stew in their embarrassment, but something told her this was an opportunity, a chance to turn hostility into understanding. "You want to make it right," she finally said. "Then learn. Learn about what we do and why we do it. These dogs aren't just tools. They're partners, and the bond between a handler and their dog is something special. If you really want to understand, I'll give you a chance to see it for yourself." The offer caught Derek off guard. He blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. "You'd let us come to the base, see how it all works." "If you're serious," Emily replied. "But don't think it's going to be some kind of free pass. You'll have to earn the trust you lost today. That means listening, asking questions, and showing genuine respect, not just to me, but to everyone who serves." Derek exchanged glances with his crew, and after a moment, he turned back to Emily with a firm nod. "We're serious," he said. "Whatever it takes, we'll do it. Just tell us where to start." Emily allowed herself a small smile, though her tone remained professional. "Good. Meet me at the base tomorrow morning. Be ready to listen and learn. And leave the attitude behind. You won't find any room for it there." As the bikers mounted their motorcycles and revved their engines, preparing to leave, Emily watched them go with a sense of cautious optimism. She knew changing deeply ingrained attitudes wouldn't happen overnight, but she also believed in the power of education and empathy. If Derek and his crew were willing to take the first step, then maybe, just maybe, they could bridge the gap between their world and hers. Max and Luna seemed to sense her mood, leaning against her legs as if offering silent support. Emily knelt down to scratch behind their ears, her heart swelling with pride. Today hadn't been about proving dominance or seeking revenge. It had been about teaching a lesson, one that might just lead to something bigger than anyone expected. As the sound of motorcycle engines faded into the distance, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of something new. Months had passed since that tense afternoon near the biker hangout, and Emily often found herself reflecting on how far things had come. What had begun as a moment of mockery and misunderstanding had transformed into something far greater, a testament to the power of respect, humility, and the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. As she sat on the porch of her small home one quiet evening, Max and Luna lying contentedly at her feet, She thought about the ripple effect of that single encounter. Derek and his crew were now regular fixtures at the base, their once rowdy demeanor replaced by a quiet dedication to supporting K-9 units. They had raised tens of thousands of dollars for retired military dogs, ensuring that these loyal companions received the care they deserved after years of service. Their efforts had inspired others in the community to get involved too. Local schools invited handlers to speak about their work, businesses donated supplies, and families adopted retired dogs, giving them loving homes in their golden years. The impact was undeniable, and it all traced back to that day when a group of bikers underestimated a woman and her dogs. For Emily, the journey had been deeply personal. She had spent years proving herself in a field where women were often overlooked, and while she never sought validation, seeing Derek and his crew recognize her skills, and those of her dogs, was incredibly rewarding. It wasn't just about earning their respect. It was about showing them that strength comes in many forms. Whether it was the discipline of her dogs, the resilience of the handlers, or even the willingness of the bikers to change their perspectives, everyone had something valuable to contribute. As she stroked Max's fur, Emily thought about the lessons she had learned along the way. This experience reminded her that people aren't defined solely by their mistakes. They are shaped by how they respond to them. Derek and his crew could have walked away unchanged after that initial confrontation, but instead, they chose to grow. That decision didn't just benefit the K-9 program. It brought two vastly different worlds together in a way no one could have predicted. The transformation extended beyond the bikers themselves. The entire town began viewing the military base not as an isolated institution, but as an integral part of the community. Families visited more frequently, bringing their children to learn about teamwork, loyalty, and sacrifice. Even the local newspaper ran a feature story on Emily and her dogs, highlighting their role in bridging gaps and fostering understanding. The article ended with a quote from Derek. "I used to think I knew everything. Then I met Sergeant Carter and her team, and they showed me what real courage looks like." Emily smiled faintly at the memory. Courage, she thought, wasn't always about grand gestures or heroic acts. Sometimes it was about staying calm under pressure, standing your ground when challenged, and choosing to teach rather than retaliate. Her dogs embodied that spirit every day, and so did the men who had once doubted them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the landscape, Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude. Max let out a soft sigh, resting his head on her lap, while Luna dozed peacefully beside him. In that moment, surrounded by the companions she loved most, Emily realized that this wasn't just her story. It belonged to everyone involved. From the handlers who trained tirelessly with their dogs to the bikers who traded arrogance for admiration, each person played a role in creating something meaningful. And though life would undoubtedly present new challenges, Emily knew one thing for certain. She and her dogs had made a difference, not through force or intimidation, but through patience, respect, and an unwavering belief in the power of connection. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Emily leaned back in her chair, feeling a quiet pride. This was more than a victory. It was a reminder that even in moments of tension, there is always room for growth, understanding, and unity. The next morning, Derek and his crew arrived at the military base, their motorcycles parked neatly outside the gates. They were dressed differently this time. No leather vests or flashy patches, just plain clothes that showed they meant business. As they walked through the entrance, led by Emily, there was an unmistakable air of nervousness about them. These men, who were used to being loud and in charge, now seemed almost timid, their voices hushed as they took in the disciplined atmosphere around them. Emily greeted them with a polite nod, her demeanor calm but professional. "Welcome," she said simply, motioning for them to follow her. She introduced them to a few other handlers and their dogs, each pair exuding the same level of focus and teamwork that Emily shared with Max and Luna. The bikers watched in awe as one handler demonstrated how his dog could detect hidden explosives with pinpoint accuracy, while another showcased her dog's ability to track a scent over long distances. Every demonstration highlighted not only the dog's incredible skills, but also the deep bond between human and animal. Derek couldn't help but ask questions, his curiosity getting the better of him. "How do you train them to do all this?" he asked during a break, his tone respectful for once. One of the handlers smiled patiently and explained the rigorous process, from basic obedience to advanced tactical training, all designed to prepare the dogs for real-world missions. "It's not just about teaching commands," the handler added. "It's about building trust. These dogs depend on us, and we depend on them. It's a partnership." As the day went on, the bikers became more engaged, their earlier skepticism replaced by genuine admiration. They even got the chance to interact with some of the dogs under close supervision. At first, they hesitated, unsure of how to act around such highly trained animals. But as the handlers encouraged them to approach calmly and confidently, the ice began to melt. One biker knelt down to pet a friendly Labrador retriever named Rocky, marveling at how gentle yet alert the dog was. "I never thought I'd say this," he admitted sheepishly, "but these guys are amazing." By the end of the tour, Derek pulled Emily aside, his expression earnest. "I owe you an apology for everything," he said sincerely. "We didn't get it before. We thought we were just messing around, but seeing all this, it's humbling. You and your dogs, you're heroes, and we treated you like a joke. That wasn't right." Emily nodded, accepting his words without judgment. "Apologies are good," she replied, "but actions speak louder. If you want to make a real difference, use what you've learned today to educate others. There's still so much misunderstanding out there about what K9 units do and why it matters." Inspired by her suggestion, Derek decided to take things a step further. Over the following weeks, he organized fundraisers within his community to support retired military working dogs. Many of these loyal companions faced challenges adjusting to civilian life after years of service, and Derek wanted to ensure they received the care and respect they deserved. His efforts quickly gained traction, drawing attention from local media and inspiring others to contribute. Meanwhile, the bikers continued visiting the base regularly, learning more about the program and forming unexpected friendships with the handlers. What had started as a tense confrontation had blossomed into something far greater, a mutual understanding and appreciation that transcended their differences. For Emily, watching this transformation unfold was deeply rewarding. She hadn't set out to change anyone's perspective, but in doing so, she had opened doors that might otherwise have remained closed. As she stood beside Max and Luna one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, she felt a quiet sense of pride. This wasn't just about proving a point. It was about building bridges and fostering respect where none had existed before. And though neither side could have predicted it, those bridges would continue to grow stronger with time, connecting two worlds that, at first glance, seemed worlds apart. Weeks turned into months, and the unlikely bond between Emily, her fellow handlers, and Derek's biker group only grew stronger. What had started as an apology and a lesson in respect blossomed into a full-fledged partnership that neither side could have anticipated. The bikers, once loud and brash, now showed up regularly at the base, not to cause trouble but to lend a helping hand. They assisted with fundraising events, organized supply drives for retired military dogs, and even volunteered their time to help maintain the training grounds. Derek, in particular, became one of the most vocal advocates for K9 units. He used his influence within the biker community to spread awareness about the critical role these dogs played in keeping people safe. At first, some of his fellow bikers teased him about his newfound passion, calling him Dog Lover Derek, and joking that he'd trade his motorcycle for a leash any day. But when they saw how much pride Derek took in supporting the program, and how much good it was doing, they couldn't help but get on board themselves. One Saturday morning, the base hosted its first ever open house event, thanks largely to Derek's efforts. Families from the nearby town arrived in droves, eager to learn about the work of military K9 handlers. Children squealed with delight as they met the dogs, who were surprisingly gentle despite their intimidating reputations. Handlers patiently answered questions, sharing stories of daring missions and heartwarming moments with their canine partners. For many attendees, it was their first glimpse into a world they knew little about, and it left a lasting impression. During the event, Derek stood by Emily's side, watching the crowd interact with Max and Luna. The two dogs handled the attention like pros, calmly allowing kids to pet them while staying alert to their surroundings. "You ever think we'd end up here?" Derek asked with a chuckle, shaking his head in disbelief. "Me, organizing charity rides for K9 units. Never saw that coming." Emily smiled, glancing over at him. "People can surprise you," she said simply. "It's not about where you start. It's about what you choose to do next." The event raised thousands of dollars for retired military dogs, providing medical care, food, and comfortable living arrangements for those transitioning to civilian life. But more importantly, it fostered a sense of unity between communities that had once been divided. Locals began seeing the bikers in a new light, not as troublemakers, but as generous contributors to a worthy cause. And the bikers, in turn, found purpose in giving back, something many of them hadn't realized they were missing. As the months passed, Derek's crew went above and beyond to support the program. They attended parades wearing T-shirts emblazoned with pictures of Max and Luna, handed out flyers at local businesses, and even created a social media page dedicated to celebrating the heroism of military working dogs. Their posts quickly gained traction, drawing attention from across the country. People shared heartfelt messages, photos of their own beloved pets, and stories of how K9 units had impacted their lives. For Emily, this growing alliance was both humbling and inspiring. She had always believed in the power of education and empathy, but she never imagined it would lead to such profound change. Her own relationship with Derek shifted too. What had begun as mutual wariness evolved into a genuine friendship built on shared values and mutual respect. On more than one occasion, she found herself laughing alongside him during training sessions, marveling at how far they'd come since that fateful day. Even Max and Luna seemed to approve of the transformation. Whenever Derek or his crew visited, the dogs greeted them enthusiastically, wagging their tails and nudging their hands for affection. It was clear that the bond extended beyond humans. It included the animals who had unknowingly sparked the entire journey. As Emily reflected on everything that had transpired, she realized that this chapter wasn't just about teaching lessons or earning respect. It was about connection, the kind that bridged gaps, shattered stereotypes, and reminded everyone involved of their shared humanity. And though challenges still lay ahead, she felt confident knowing that together they could overcome anything. In the end, what started as a confrontation transformed into a story of growth, understanding, and unexpected camaraderie, a testament to the fact that sometimes the greatest victories are born not from conflict, but from compassion. As the dust settled from Max and Luna's impressive demonstration, Emily could see the bikers' confidence shrinking with every passing second. Their earlier bravado had vanished, replaced by a mix of awe and unease. But Emily wasn't about to let them off the hook just yet. She knew this was her chance to drive home the lesson they desperately needed, one that went beyond mere words or flashy displays of skill. With a calm but commanding tone, Emily signaled for Max and Luna to advance toward the group. The dogs moved in unison, their powerful strides radiating authority. Max's deep growl rumbled through the air like distant thunder, while Luna's piercing gaze locked onto each biker as if sizing them up. Though the dogs never touched anyone, their sheer presence was enough to send chills down the spines of even the toughest men in the group. Derek, who had spent most of his life projecting an image of toughness, suddenly looked less sure of himself. His usual swagger faltered as he took a cautious step back, trying to maintain some semblance of control over the situation. Hey, he stammered, raising his hands in a placating gesture. "We were just messing around, all right. No need to get all serious." Emily didn't respond immediately. Instead, she allowed the tension to linger, letting the bikers feel the full weight of what they had dismissed so carelessly. Then, with deliberate slowness, she said, "You laughed at me. You mocked my dogs. And you thought it was funny to challenge something you clearly didn't understand." Her voice was steady, but there was an edge to it, a quiet intensity that demanded attention. "Let me make one thing crystal clear. These aren't ordinary animals. They're elite military working dogs trained to neutralize threats in seconds. If I gave the command, they could take you down before you even realize what hit you." To emphasize her point, Emily issued another sharp whistle. At the sound, Max and Luna sprang into action once more. This time, they performed a series of tactical maneuvers designed to simulate real-life scenarios. Max charged forward, circling one of the bikers with calculated precision, his teeth bared in a silent warning. Luna mirrored his movements on the opposite side, her sleek body moving like liquid steel. Together, they created an invisible barrier, boxing the bikers in without ever making physical contact. The effect was immediate. Several of the men stumbled backward, their faces pale with shock. One of them tripped over his own feet in his haste to retreat, landing awkwardly on the ground. Even Jake, the same man who had dared to touch Max earlier, looked like he wanted nothing more than to disappear. He kept glancing at the dogs, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed nervously. Derek, desperate to salvage whatever dignity he had left, tried to crack a joke. All right. We get it. They're tough cookies," he said, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow and forced. But no one joined in. The rest of the group remained silent, their eyes glued to the dogs, too intimidated to move. Emily finally spoke again, her tone softer but still firm. "It's not about being tough," she explained. "These dogs are highly trained professionals. They've saved lives, including mine, more times than I can count. When you disrespect them, you're also disrespecting everyone who has ever served alongside them. That includes soldiers, handlers, and civilians whose safety depends on their work." Her words struck a chord. For the first time since the encounter began, the bikers seemed to truly grasp the gravity of their actions. Derek ran a hand over his face, looking genuinely conflicted. "Look," he said after a long pause, "we didn't mean any harm. Honest, we weren't thinking." Emily nodded slowly, acknowledging his attempt at an apology. "I believe you," she said, "but understanding is the first step toward change. Maybe now you'll think twice before underestimating someone, or something, you don't fully understand." The tension began to ease as Emily called Max and Luna back to her side. The dogs returned instantly, sitting obediently beside her as if nothing had happened. To the bikers, however, the world felt different now. What had started as a careless taunt had turned into a humbling lesson, one that would stay with them long after the day ended. And though neither side realized it yet, this moment marked the beginning of something unexpected, a bridge between two worlds that couldn't have been more different.